Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So today was the Daily Journal annual meeting with Charlie Munger. You can see him here taking a bite of peanut brittle, the Coke in front of him. Guys, this meeting did not disappoint. It's the meeting I look forward to probably the most every year, even more than the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. So I want to share my highlights. I know there's probably parts of the world where you guys don't get to see this. So hopefully I can give you some insights into what was shared here at the Daily Journal meeting. And even if you did watch it, hopefully I can kind of sink some of these lessons deeper, both in my own mind and yours. So the first thing I want to jump off with is there was a question around Berkshire and unloading bank stocks. Okay. Someone asked, Berkshire's been unloading some of these bank stocks that are within the Daily Journal investment portfolio. If they aren't good enough for Berkshire shareholders, why are they good enough for us? In other words, why hasn't Daily Journal sold them as well? I really like this answer from Charlie. If you own marketable securities within a corporation located in California, you pay a huge state and federal taxes if you sell things at a big gain. That affects our willingness to sell. Those bank stocks I bought on the bottom tick in 2009, okay, they are practically all gain. So I immediately give the government 40% of everything we sell. And of course, the dividends are almost tax-free. Based on what we could get if we sold them and the return we're getting out of the dividends, it's not so bad for us. All factors considered, we're willing to hold them for a while. Okay, so that's Charlie's very logical, sensible position on those bank stocks within the Daily Journal portfolio. He's asked if you had to name one factor that dominates bad human decisions, okay, what would it be? What's the biggest factor? Denial, right? Psychological denial. If the truth is unpleasant enough, people's minds can play tricks on them that it isn't really happening. That causes terrible behavior in business, in people's lives. If you want an example of how denial is affecting things, take the world of investment management, okay, a world that most of us are very familiar with. How many managers are going to beat the indexes given all of the costs associated with managing a fund? I would say maybe 5% can consistently beat the averages, okay, beat the indexes. Everybody else is living in a state of extreme denial. Okay, and they're tweaking their perception of reality to suit, what is incentivized financially for them. Demosthenes, I don't know the name exactly, a couple thousand years ago said, what people wish is what they believe. Okay, so we really do contort our view of reality based on what we want it to be. And this causes massive problems. So that's the biggest factor dominating bad human behavior for Charlie is denial. The next thing he talks about is, I really enjoyed this. So he said, he's talking about stock-based compensation. We have an incentive plan now in this Journal Technologies, right, which is kind of the operating business of Daily Journal. And it has $1 million worth of Daily Journal stock, okay, in the incentive plan. That did not come from the company issuing those shares. I gave those shares to the company to use in compensating the employees. Amazing. How many companies do this, right? I don't know that I've ever heard of this before. I learned that trick from the guy at BYD, right? So Daily Journal owns some BYD in China, electric car manufacturer, I think, among other things. And this guy has been so impressive to Charlie. And he did that. He put up some of his own stock that he owned to incentivize employees or maybe other managers. So there is some of this old-fashioned capitalist virtue left in the Daily Journal, and some left in Berkshire Hathaway, and some left in BYD. Okay, old-fashioned capitalist virtue. But most places, everybody is trying to take what they need and just rationalizing whether it's deserved or not. So first take, then kind of tweak reality to, rationalize it. Sounds about right. Okay, next I want to talk about leverage. So this is great. I don't think I've ever heard Charlie talk this much about leverage and the fact that Charlie Munger uses leverage. So on leverage, I operated with no leverage for long stretches of my old age, and Warren is the same way. Recently, I used a little bit of leverage here and in another place because the opportunities were so ridiculously good, I thought it was desirable to do that. You're right, it's unusual for us, right? Usually, Charlie is preaching, do not use leverage, it will get you killed, right? The only way to win the game is to stay in the game. By the way, if you go back early in my career, I used some leverage. Okay? I sometimes ask myself a mental question. What is the appropriate percentage of your net worth you should put into this stock if you think it's an absolute cinch? If you're the kind of fellow who's right when you think something is a cinch, the answer is 100% or maybe 150%. That surprised me, that answer. But nobody teaches people to think that way in finance. If the opportunity is great enough, the logical answer is 100%, or maybe 200%. Okay, Charlie one-upping himself here. I used a little leverage on my way up, and so did Warren, by the way. The Buffett partnership used leverage regularly every year of its life. I think the Buffett partnership operated from 1957 to 1969. So every year, Warren used leverage. I used leverage to buy BYD, and you could argue that's the best thing I've ever done for the Daily Journal. I assume he means using leverage to buy BYD. I'm sure, just buying BYD alone would have been incredible. But using leverage really enhanced those returns, it sounds like. I think most people should avoid it. Okay, this is kind of what he normally preaches to the masses. Most people should avoid it, but maybe not everybody need play by those rules. I have a friend who says the young man knows the rules and the old man knows the exceptions. Okay, so it sounds like Charlie recently found some exceptions to the rule of avoiding leverage. Next, he talks about Alibaba. Okay, and this was also surprising to me. I regard Alibaba as one of the worst mistakes I've ever made. Okay, as of Q4, Daily Journal still owns Alibaba. So that's interesting, being that it's one of the worst mistakes he's ever made. Thinking about Alibaba, I got charmed with the idea of their position in Chinese internet. And I didn't stop to realize they're still a bleeping retailer. It's going to be a competitive business, the internet. It's not going to be a cakewalk for everybody. And I'm going to jump ahead. He talks about Alibaba a little bit later. So I figure I'll just bring that into this part. He's asked, what has he changed his mind about in the last year? He likes to blow up one of his most sacred ideas. And here was his response. When the internet came in, I got overcharmed by the people who were leading in the online retailing. And I didn't realize it's still retailing. Okay, so same thing as before. I got a little out of focus, and it made me overestimate the future returns from Alibaba. Okay. And he says it's good for me to rub my nose in my own mistakes. Right? It really helps them sink in. Next, Costco. I mean, it wouldn't be a Daily Journal meeting if Charlie didn't wax poetic on Costco. So here's what he says about Costco. He's asked, what can hurt the economic moat of Costco, right? Is there anything that can disrupt Costco or really make it fall from grace? Charlie says, as long as Costco keeps the faith with its strong culture and their extreme low markup policy, I don't see any stopping it. The trouble with Costco is it's trading at 40 times earnings right now, which isn't egregious enough for Charlie to sell it, but he certainly wouldn't be buying at current prices. Except for that, right, the 40 times earnings presently, it's a perfect damn company and has a marvelous future. I love everything about Costco, and I'm never going to sell a share. Okay, so there you have it. Nick Sleep maybe would say the same. He certainly held on ever since he bought, I think early in the Nomad Investment Partnership years. They bought into Costco maybe 2005, something like that. On Berkshire, everybody who has bought Berkshire and held for 20 years has done well. Okay. I think that will be true for those who buy it at the current price. I think today it's trading about 1.5 times book. I don't think it will be as good in the future as it was in the past. I think Charlie has been clear about that, saying that before. But it will be okay considering how poorly everything else is going to do. That kind of got my attention. So he's asked, why is everything else going to do poorly? The valuations start higher now. Okay, so you have to pay up a little bit more. And because government is so hostile to business. So that's gives Charlie reason to believe it's going to be a lot harder for investors going forward than it has been in the past. A little moment of humor here as Charlie's eating his peanut brittle. He says, peanut brittle is the key to longevity, right? He was asked, are there any daily habits you have that you think may contribute to your long life? Peanut brittle, the key to longevity. He also mentions he's done almost no exercise on purpose in his life. Okay, he was in the armed services early on. He had to kind of train then. That wasn't his choice. And he's also played some tennis in his life, but that was for the recreation aspect of it, not to do for the sake of doing exercise. The worst thing that happened to the human race in my lifetime was when an advanced civilization like Germany was taken over by a dictator as awful as Adolf Hitler. That happened as a consequence of a big worldwide depression. It would never have happened if we didn't have the big depression. So this makes me think about a little bit about crypto and the wild speculation that can happen towards the end of a bull market. And why I think it gives Charlie a little extra concern when things like that happen. Because what goes up, especially what goes up to insane levels, like what's happened recently, must come down. And the higher they rise, the further they fall. And having these big depressions, right, these massive kind of outsize market crises can really set the stage for some, challenging situations that can come out of that. And so I just kind of put those two together as Charlie was talking about, this worldwide depression kind of setting the stage for this dictator to take a leadership role in Germany and everything that came from that. I love this. I've heard Bill Gates say that it's almost the rule that if a really disruptive technology comes along, the incumbents screw up their reaction to it. Okay, and you don't have to look too much further back than the Nifty 50 to really get a sense for this. These are companies that can do no wrong, right? A couple decades later, most of them are gone. And Charlie talks about biology in relation to capitalism and businesses. How, every individual, eventually every species, they all die, right? And they're replaced by something new. That makes me think about Google, it makes me think about ChatGPT and, the disruption that's clearly kind of right on the precipice here. Of course, I don't know how things are going to play out with that, but history does not favor the incumbents with those sorts of things. I also just noticed today on Dataroma, what is the most held company by super investors? Google. Okay, so when something gets that popular, gets that big, seems that indestructible, that should probably give investors pause. Back to the Bill Gates thing. If a really disruptive technology comes along, the incumbents screw up their reaction to it. It's hard to change your ways when they've been so successful for such a long time and go into a totally different way of behaving and thinking. Okay, a big organization, it's not very agile, right? And when you've got a disruptive technology come in, that is a very difficult shift to make for this massive organization, who's set in a lot of their ways. So it makes a lot of sense. We already talked about that Alibaba segment. We're near the end, folks. Charlie's asked, what quality has helped you most in life? And Charlie has talked about this before, of course, rationality. Okay, the ability to think rationally and behave rationally. If you're just not crazy, okay, pretty low bar perhaps. If you're just not crazy, you have a big advantage over, say, 95% of people. 19 out of 20 people, you have a big advantage over if you're just not crazy. Seems like a pretty low bar. Now, on top of that, if you're not crazy, and if you're patient, you're a gratification deferrer, right? Like in the marshmallow test, you can wait 15 minutes to get 2 marshmallows. It's practically a cinch, right? You're not crazy, you're patient, you can defer gratification. It's a cinch. You've got a huge advantage in life over most everyone else. And then if on top of that, you're exceptionally good at satisfying your commitments to other people, right? Keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do. You got it. It's a lock, okay? It's very simple. And yet so few people behave in those ways. So awesome, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of highlight reel of the daily journal meeting. I encourage everyone to watch it. It's over 2.5 hours, but there is so much in here, so many juicy nuggets. I didn't touch much on crypto here. Charlie, I feel like he even one-upped his disdain for crypto from previous meetings in this one. So if you want to chuckle, definitely take a look at that. But yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.